Israel. During World War II, the Jewish community in pre-state Israel cooperated with Britain, helping to contribute to the victory of the Allied forces over Nazi Germany. This policy was based also on the hope that after the war, Britain would reward the Jewish community for its support. But that was not the case. The British government continued its policies against Jewish immigration into the country and against fulfilling the Zionist dream of returning to the land of Israel. In reaction, the Jewish community established the Hebrew Rebel Movement, which united the three underground military organizations, the Haganah Palmach, the Etzel, and the Lehi, in their struggle against the British Mandate. The movement led dozens of operations, including attacking bridges, railroads, army camps, police stations, airfields, and more. On April 23, 1947, 40 Etzel fighters led an attack against the British police fortress in Ramat Gan. The attack was meant to confiscate arms and ammunition and to harm the British Army's reputation. The operation was successful, but the British retaliated with heavy gunfire. 4 fighters were killed and 5 injured. One of the fighters, Dov Gruner, was badly injured and captured by the British. During his trial, he refused to accept the authority of the British court and did not receive any legal defense. After the guilty verdict was read, he stated out loud, "In blood and fire Judea fell, in blood and fire Judea will rise." The underground operations against the British dramatically escalated, and the British reacted even more harshly. In one event, the British caught an Etzel fighter and sentenced him to a whipping, which was considered by the Etzel as a humiliating punishment. In response, the Etzel launched a series of retaliation operations in order to kidnap British soldiers to prove that the whip can work both ways. One of the units that took part in these operations was identified by the British, and they opened fire on them. One of the units that took part in these operations was identified by the British, and they opened fire on them. The driver, Avram Mizrahi, was injured, caught by the British, and suffered severe torture that led to his death. His friends, Yechiel Dresner, Mordechai Elkachi, Eliezer Kashani, and Chaim Golovsky, were also caught by the British, and they too endured brutal torture. During their trial, they, like Dov Gruner, refused to recognize the court authority and did not participate in the legal procedures. During the defense stage, Kashani stated as follows, "In this country rose up a new Hebrew generation that will never accept humiliation or slavery, a generation that will fight for its honor at every price." The 4 were found guilty for holding weapons, and 3 of them, Kashani, Elkachi, and Dresner, were sentenced to death by hanging. The 3 joined Gruner and waited together in a Jerusalem prison for the execution of the sentence. On April 15, 1947, they were secretly moved to a jail in Akko. The day after, they were all hanged without the presence of any Jewish witnesses. The 4 of them were singing the anthem Hatikva while they were hanged. Their bodies were taken by a convoy of British tanks and armored vehicles for burial right here in Sfat. Despite the curfew applied all over the country, hundreds of Sfat's Jewish residents took part in the burial that was held under heavy rainfall. Many of the Etzel fighters were imprisoned in the British jail in Akko. On May 4, 1947, the Etzel launched a plan to release the prisoners from this jail. The operation began with a huge explosion that shook the jail, and escape of the prisoners ensued. During the operation, 3 fighters and 6 prisoners were killed. 5 of the prisoners were caught by the British. 3 of them, Yaakov Weiss, Avshalom Chaviv, and Meir Nakar, were sentenced to death. In an attempt to stop the execution, the Etzel kidnapped 2 British sergeants and announced that they will be hanged if the sentence took place. On July 28, 1947, the 3 Etzel fighters were hanged, also while singing the Atikva. The day after, they too were buried at this cemetery. Following this, the Etzel did indeed hang the 2 kidnapped sergeants. This action shook Britain and brought to an end the hanging of Jews as a punishment by the British authority. The Etzel's bitter revenge ultimately broke the British gallows. A few months later, the UN accepted the resolution to end the British mandate over the land of Israel, a resolution that led to the establishment of the State of Israel. You are kindly invited to visit the monument and the burial place of the heroes who sacrificed their lives for the Jewish people to live free in their homeland.